3 months ago, in the living room of our family home in Fresno, California, my father slammed his hand down on the old wooden table with a thud that shook the entire room. Then he shouted in my face, "If you don't give the house to your sister, get out!" When those words came out of his mouth, I knew my life with this family was over. Hello, everyone. My name is Ayla Torres, and I'm 33. I'm a software engineer at a major tech company in Silicon Valley and currently live alone in a 3-bedroom house in San Jose, California. Nowadays, my daily life is relatively peaceful, without the disturbances from my family, my father, mother, and sister. Because 3 months ago, after their unreasonable demand, I cut all ties with them. To me, they're just strangers who share the same DNA. And I've never felt this peaceful before. I was born and raised in Fresno, a farming city in Central California. Our family was working class and of Latino descent. We lived in a modest neighborhood with small houses and old cars parked in the yards. My father, Michael Torres, used to work as a mechanic at a local garage. He was a man with skillful hands, able to fix anything from car engines to lawnmowers, but he had been out of work for over 5 years due to a back injury. My mother, Rosa Torres, is a cashier at the local Walmart. She's been working there for nearly 20 years. My younger sister, Claire Torres, is now 28 years old, 5 years younger than I am. She's the golden child in my parents' eyes, the main reason my relationship with the family fell apart. My story began on a Thursday afternoon just over 3 months ago. That day, I was working at the office when my phone buzzed with a call from my mother. As soon as I picked up, her voice rang out excitedly. She said to me with barely hidden enthusiasm, "Ayla, come home this Sunday. Claire says she has some good news to share. It's been a while since you last visited." As soon as she finished speaking, I noticed something unusual about her tone. Usually, when Mom calls, there's always a bit of tension in her voice, like she's about to ask for a favor, but this time she sounded genuinely happy. Curious about her excitement, I asked, "What's the good news?" Immediately, with a mysterious tone, she replied, "I can't tell you over the phone. You'll have to come home and see. This is the biggest news our family's had in years." After her words, I paused for a moment. I realized it had been nearly 6 months since I last visited. Work had kept me busy, and honestly, I wasn't exactly thrilled about family gatherings. They always seemed to revolve around Claire. But the excitement in her voice genuinely intrigued me. After considering it, I told her, "All right, I'll come home for dinner on Sunday." The moment I agreed, she said joyfully, "Wonderful. I'll cook your favorite dishes. Claire will be there too. Don't be late." She hung up right after that. And me? I kept wondering what the good news could be. Thoughts ran through my head. Maybe Claire got a promotion or found a better job. I even imagined she might have won the lottery, because honestly, the only thing that could make my mom that happy was money. At that moment, I had no idea it would be the last dinner I'd ever have with my family. I drove nearly 3 hours from San Jose back to Fresno on Sunday. The whole way, I kept thinking about Mom's phone call, about the unusually excited tone in her voice when she mentioned some big good news. I got home around 5 p.m. Right as I parked in front of the gate, the whole family came out to greet me. Seeing them standing there with such bright smiles surprised me, because it was the first time they'd ever done that in years. Usually, I had to open the door myself and look for everyone in the house. As soon as I got out of the car, my dad came up to shake my hand. His face was unusually cheerful as he said to me, "Ayla, you're back. That's great." Next, Mom hugged me tightly, her voice trembling with emotion as she said, "I'm so happy to see you home. It's been 6 months since we last saw you." But what surprised me the most was Claire, my little sister. She walked up and linked arms with me, a bright smile on her face, and said, "Ayla, I missed you so much. Let's go inside. Mom made a bunch of your favorite dishes today." The way Claire acted that day was completely different from before. Usually, she just nodded to greet me and went right back to staring at her phone. At that moment, even though I had doubts about how heartfelt they were, I didn't say anything. I decided to observe and see what they would do that evening, quietly. As soon as I entered the house, the smell of carnitas and fresh tortillas filled the space. It was the scent of my childhood, but today it seemed richer than usual. Claire turned to look at me, her eyes sparkling with excitement, then said, "Sit with Dad. Mom and I will take care of the cooking." After putting away my coat, I sat on the porch with Dad on those old wooden chairs. He opened 2 beers, handed me one, and said, "So, daughter, "How's work in the city?" While we talked about work and life, I couldn't help but feel something was different in today's family atmosphere. There was a quiet excitement, as if they were hiding some wonderful secret. Every time Claire laughed loudly from the kitchen, every time Mom giggled while chatting with her, I felt like something special was about to be revealed. Seeing my family so happy, I had a feeling that tonight's dinner would come with some immense joy. Around 6 o'clock in the evening, we all sat down together for dinner. The table was covered with plates of delicious grilled meat, warm corn tortillas, and my mom's homemade salsas. The atmosphere that night was genuinely warm and cheerful. Everyone chatted easily about everyday things, laughing and passing dishes around. But what caught my attention was Claire. She kept smiling to herself in that strange, secretive way. Every time I looked at her, she'd glance away and focus on her plate, that same smile lingering on her face. Throughout dinner, no one had mentioned the big news my mom talked about on the phone. Maybe they were waiting until after the meal, when we'd all settled into the living room with a cup of coffee, to make the announcement. My mom kept asking about my work, sounding more concerned than usual when she said, "Ella, is your job stable? Has your income gone up recently?" Then my dad nodded in agreement and added, "Yeah, I'd like to know if you're happy with how your life's going." The way they asked those questions, deliberate and measured, made it feel like they were sizing up my financial situation before telling me something important. Their questions only deepened my curiosity about the real reason behind this special dinner. About an hour later, dinner came to an end. Once we finished clearing the table, the whole family moved into the living room. As soon as everyone had settled in, my mom set her coffee cup down on the table, looked at me with a beaming smile, and said, "Ayla, now it's time for me to share the good news I mentioned on the phone." Hearing that, I sat up straighter, giving her my full attention. Claire also placed her cup down, her face glowing in a way I hadn't seen before. Then my mom took Claire's hand, her voice shaking with emotion as she announced, "Claire is pregnant. She's 3 months along." Immediately, a wave of genuine happiness rushed over me. I stood up, walked over, and wrapped Claire in a hug. "Congratulations," I said. "Looks like we've got a new member joining the family." Claire hugged me tightly, her voice choked with emotion as she said, "Thank you, Isla. I'm thrilled too." After congratulating her, I sat beside her and asked, "Curious, what about Carlos? Does he know yet?" Claire nodded, her smile lighting up the room. "Carlos knows. He's thrilled. We're getting married next month at the local church." When she said they were getting married in just a month, I felt genuinely happy for her. I turned to her and said sincerely, "I'm happy for you. What about the wedding prep? Do you need any help from me?" Right after I asked that, the mood in the room shifted. It suddenly felt tense, strangely so. I noticed my mom and dad exchange a look, one of those silent glances that meant something, but I couldn't tell what. It felt like they were getting ready to tell me something beyond just the joyful news about the baby. About a minute of silence passed. Then my mom spoke carefully. "We asked you to come home today because we need your help." She paused, looking at me hesitantly. I had no idea what she was about to say, but my heartbeat picked up. A few seconds later, her voice trembling, she said, "I think you should give your house to Claire. You're single, no family. You don't need a big house like that." I was stunned. In that moment, everything fell into place. The warm welcome at the gate, the dinner with all my favorite dishes, and the financial questions. It all had a purpose. They wanted my house. I started feeling angry. Not just surprised, but genuinely upset. But I kept my cool. I looked at my mom and asked, "You're not serious, are you?" Seeing my expression, she hesitated for a second before saying, "I'm serious. Your sister needs a home more than you do. You should help her and help your future niece or nephew." At that point, I knew they weren't joking. I didn't need to think about it. I answered plainly, "No, I'm not giving my house to Claire. I can help her find a place to rent at a low price, but that's it." After my firm refusal, my dad jumped in. "Ayla, give your house to your sister. When your mom and I pass away, this house will go to you." I shot back instantly. "That's not happening, Dad. My house is worth $680,000. This house isn't even worth $400,000. I'm not agreeing to that. And don't forget, I've let you both live in my place too." Before I could finish, my mom jumped in, her voice urgent. "Then at least buy Claire an apartment. Something around $400,000 would do." That second request made me even more frustrated. I couldn't hold back anymore. I told them straight up, "There's no way I'm giving Claire my house, and I'm not buying her one. She's been working for 6 years and her salary is not low. Where's all that money gone?" I looked at Claire. She stayed silent, didn't even try to defend herself. But I already knew. She'd blown it all on shopping, bars, and luxury vacations. Every paycheck, gone by the end of the month. Faced with my firm stance, my dad lost his patience. The sweetness from earlier in the evening vanished. His voice rose. "Are you giving your sister the house or not?" I wasn't intimidated. I looked him in the eye and said clearly, "Never." That's when he slammed his hand down on the old wooden table with a thud that shook the room. He stood up, pointed toward the door, and yelled, "If you're not giving your sister the house, get out." Following the direction of his finger toward the door, I didn't argue. I said, "Okay." Then I stood up, grabbed my coat, and walked out. Yes, I was furious, but I forced myself to stay calm. Not because I feared them, but because I knew they weren't worth the fight. At that last moment, before I stepped out the door, it hit me. My family saw me as a walking ATM, and I had just refused to be their next target. After leaving their house, I drove straight back to San Jose. Honestly, during that 3-hour drive, I couldn't focus. I was furious, not just because of what they asked this time, but because this had been happening for as long as I could remember. For them, it had always been a given. I was the older sister, so I had to give in, had to sacrifice, had to put Claire first. From the moment Claire was born, I could feel the difference in how our parents treated us, not because she did anything special, but because she was the daughter they had always wished for after having me. Claire was a cute little girl with shiny black hair and big round eyes. As a kid, everyone in the neighborhood said she looked like a doll. My parents doted on her endlessly, while I, being the older daughter, was expected to give up anything for her. But what bothered me the most wasn't the special treatment she got. It was the way our parents always made excuses for everything she did. When Claire broke the TV by throwing the remote in a tantrum, they said, "She's just a kid. She doesn't know any better." When she skipped school to hang out with friends, Mom said, "She's just stressed from all the studying." But when I forgot my homework once, I was banned from watching TV for a whole week. When Claire took money out of my wallet without asking to buy candy, Mom told me, "You're her sister. You should share with your sibling." When I went to college, I had to live in the dorms and walk or take the bus everywhere. But 5 years later, when Claire started college, they bought her a brand new Honda Civic. I remember asking Dad why he was showing so much favoritism. All he said was, "She's a girl. Don't compete with your sister." Still, I never hated Claire. I loved her. But I couldn't stand the way our family made her the center of everything, like I was just a background character in their lives. Driving back to San Jose, that truth hit me harder than ever. They were never going to change how they saw us. Today, they asked me to hand over the house I had worked hard to buy, the final unforgivable proof. Since I was 18, I've been taking care of myself. After graduating from high school with top grades, I earned a partial scholarship to study computer science at San Jose State University. Leaving Fresno wasn't an easy decision, but I knew that if I stayed, I'd always be living in Claire's shadow. During my 4 years in college, I worked hard, both in class and on the job, to get by. I took part-time gigs at coffee shops and interned at small tech companies for no pay to gain experience. Every night after work, I stayed up late studying to keep up. There were weeks when I survived on instant noodles to save money for tuition. I often sat in my cramped dorm room with nothing but a worn-out wooden desk and a secondhand laptop, coding until 3 in the morning. I studied from free online courses, watched hundreds of tutorial videos, and spent hours in programming forums, learning from experienced developers. After 4 relentless years, I graduated with honors and landed a job immediately at a tech startup in San Jose. My starting salary was $75,000 yearly, which felt like winning the lottery. I didn't have to worry about rent or food for the first time. But I didn't stop there. I kept pushing, kept learning. I took online courses, earned certifications in cloud computing, and picked up new programming languages. I gave my all with every project, even staying late to ensure every line of code was right. 5 years later, I had worked my way up to senior software engineer, earning $150,000 a year. By the time I was 28, I had saved enough to buy a 3-bedroom house in San Jose, thanks to disciplined saving and wise investments in a few rising tech stocks. When I signed the papers to buy that house, I felt a pride that's hard to express. It was the result of years of sacrifice, sleepless nights, and bare-bones meals. I had built my life from nothing, with no one's help but my own. And when I held the keys to my new home in my hand, I knew I had become the person I always wanted to be, independent, successful, and financially self-sufficient. All because I never stopped trying. Unlike me, after Claire graduated from high school, she stayed in Fresno and studied marketing at a local university. She didn't have to work a single part-time job. Our parents covered everything. For all 4 years of college, Claire lived like a princess. Mom and Dad paid for her tuition, food, gas, and even gave her extra money to spend every month. All she had to do was focus on her classes and enjoy life with her friends. Claire eventually graduated and landed a job at an advertising company in Fresno, earning $60,000 a year. On paper, that's a solid income for someone her age in Fresno. But there was one problem. Claire didn't know how to save money. She spent as if there were no tomorrow. Designer clothes, expensive handbags, fancy dinners, and luxury trips with friends. If she saw something she liked, she bought it. No hesitation. She blew through her entire paycheck every month, sometimes even overspending and asking our parents for more. And my parents? They always gave her money without a single complaint. If Claire said she needed a new coat, Mom would hand her $200 without a second thought. If she wanted a weekend getaway with friends, Dad would fork over another $300. They quietly transferred money to bail her out, even when she overdrew her bank account from shopping too much. Not once did they ask her where the money was going. Not once did they try to teach her about budgeting or financial responsibility. Meanwhile, I was living entirely independently in San Jose, never once asking them for help, even when money was tight. In fact, I sent them $1,000 every month. I've been doing that consistently for the past 3 years. No one forced me to. I chose to. Once, I opened their fridge during a visit home and saw nothing but discount supermarket food. That's when Mom told me Dad had stopped working after his back injury, and now they were cutting back for retirement. Hearing that made my chest tighten. I couldn't stand the thought of them scraping by while I was earning a good income. So from that day on, I decided to send them money every month, without them ever needing to ask. Right after every paycheck, I transferred $1,000 into their account so they could afford fresh food, keep up with their bills, and have enough left for doctor visits when needed. But what got to me, what truly bothered me, was that they never once thanked me. They never once said thank you. They acted like it was something I was supposed to do. One time, I was 2 days late sending the money because of a hectic week at work, and Mom called and asked, "Why hasn't the money come in this month?" Not with concern, just with expectation, like I'd failed some duty. Meanwhile, Claire never gave them a dime. She never helped them with anything. And that's when it hit me. I had dug this hole myself. Being too generous, sending them $1,000 every month, made them believe I was responsible not only for myself, but for the entire family. That's why they felt entitled to ask for my house, because somewhere along the way, they stopped seeing it as mine. They started seeing it as something I owed them. I got back to my house in San Jose just before 11 p.m. After parking in the garage, the first thing I did when I walked through the door was open my banking app and cancel the $1,000 monthly auto transfer to my mom's account. When I tapped Cancel Auto Transfer, a strange wave of relief swept over me. For 3 years, like clockwork, that money left my account every 15th of the month. Now, for the first time since I started doing this, it felt like I had just cut a cord, an invisible tie that had bound me for far too long. I did it quietly, no message, no phone call. I didn't explain it to anyone. They'd find out on their own when they checked the account at the end of the month. Even though I felt a little lighter and freer, I knew this wouldn't be the end. They wouldn't let it go easily. They'd call, text, maybe even bring Claire into it to pile on the pressure. They'd pull every move, guilt, shame, anger, to try and get me back into the role of the good daughter. In the days that followed, I kept going to work as usual. From morning to evening, I sat before my screen, writing code, joining meetings, wrapping up assigned projects. But inside, I felt uneasy. An entire week passed with no word from them. No calls, no texts from Dad, Mom, or Claire. And that silence made me nervous, because I knew my parents. They were not the type to give up easily. They had never been kind enough to accept no, especially regarding money. I remembered when they asked me for $3,000 to fix the roof a few years ago. I told them I couldn't. All my money was tied up in stocks, and I had no cash to spare. But the very next weekend, they drove 3 hours from Fresno to San Jose and showed up at my doorstep with disappointed faces. And just like that, I caved. That day, after they left, I borrowed $3,000 from a friend and sent it to them. I was ashamed to ask for the loan, but because of the pressure of their presence and their eyes, I felt like I had no other choice. I said no when Mom wanted to replace her old car a year ago. It was still running fine, and they didn't need a new one. But again, they came to my house and spent an entire afternoon convincing me. Mom talked about how often the old car broke down and how hard it was to start in winter. Dad chimed in about being worried for her safety. 4 hours later, I gave in and wired them another $5,000. Every time, they won. Not because their arguments were convincing, but because I was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of being the bad daughter. Tired of trying to hold the line in my own home. And that's why I didn't believe the silence would last. I figured I had about 3 more days, and when they didn't see the usual $1,000 hit their account, they'd call. And if I didn't answer, they'd appear in San Jose. Thinking back on all of this, I realized I needed to prepare myself for a more protracted battle than I ever expected. Just as I predicted, 3 days later my mom called. Her first words weren't, "How are you?" or "Are you eating well?" She went straight to it. "I haven't received your usual transfer this month." Right then, I felt a wave of disappointment. After everything that happened during that dinner, after Dad yelled, "Get out," the first thing she cared about was money. No apology, no concern, just money. I didn't dance around it. I told her directly, "From now on, I'm not sending money anymore. You and Dad will need to manage your finances." Immediately, her tone shifted. Her voice turned sharp as she said, "That's a separate matter. This is your responsibility." When I heard the word responsibility, I snapped. All the frustration I had been bottling up finally broke loose. I raised my voice over the phone. "It's not my responsibility to send you $1,000 every month." And with that, I hung up. I didn't wait for her to respond. To avoid the inevitable flood of calls and messages, I opened my contacts and blocked every number from my family. Then I did the same on social media, blocked them on Facebook, Instagram, and every other platform. After I cut off all communication, I figured they would arrive at my house. Based on what had happened before, I mentally prepared myself to see them standing at my door with their usual emotional pleas. I thought they'd come, offer a half-hearted apology, and ask me to keep sending money like before. But this time I was wrong. They didn't show up to ask for help and leave. They came with an entirely different plan, a plan I never thought they'd go through with. 3 days after I blocked them, I had just gotten off work and was pulling into my driveway when I was shocked. My parents were standing in front of my gate. Not with 2 or 3 bags like before, but with 6 large suitcases. The metal gate neatly lined up the suitcases like they were settling in for an extended stay. I knew exactly what they were trying to do right then and there. This wasn't a short visit, or an attempt to reconcile. This was an organized invasion. After parking the car in the garage, I got out and decided to confront them directly. Before they could even say a word, I told them, "Go home. You're not welcome here." Immediately, my dad lost it. His voice rose, full of anger, as he said, "You dare talk like that to the people who raised you?" But I didn't feel scared. I looked him straight in the eye and replied, calmly but firmly, "Don't forget, you kicked me out just over 2 weeks ago." Seeing how tense things were between me and my dad, my mom quickly stepped in, trying to ease the situation. She said, "You're still upset about that. Your dad didn't mean it." I stayed silent for a few seconds. Then, not wanting the conversation to drag on, I asked directly, "Just tell me, why are you here?" Noticing I wasn't as tense anymore, my mom suddenly got excited. She told me, "We've made our decision. The house in Fresno will go to Claire. Your dad and I are moving in with you." The moment she finished that sentence, I saw their whole scheme. They had made a massive decision about my life without even asking me. They thought that just showing up with luggage would leave me no choice but to accept them. After they kicked me out of the house in Fresno, they now expected to take over mine. I knew I had to draw a firm line this time. I couldn't let them keep controlling my life. Without hesitation, I said, "Go home. There's no room here." My dad snapped back right away, his voice louder now. "Don't be selfish. You've got a 3-bedroom house. How is there no room? You're refusing to let your parents live with you?" I stayed quiet for a few seconds, thinking. Then suddenly an idea came to me. A way to test what they really wanted. I told them, "If you want to stay here, fine." They immediately lit up. My mom smiled and said, "That's my good girl. Let's go inside." While they were still celebrating what they thought was my agreement, I added, "We haven't settled the terms yet." Hearing the word terms, my dad quickly asked, sounding suspicious, "What terms?" I didn't dance around it anymore. I said, "If you want to stay, pay rent." $1,500 each per month, and we split all the household expenses evenly. My dad shouted, "Are you insane? Nobody charges their parents rent." I burst out laughing at that. Then I replied, my voice steady and unwavering, "You're the ones who are insane. I don't think you see through your own plan. Go home. If you don't, I'm calling the cops." Then I pulled out my phone, dialed 911, and held it up in front of them. My finger was ready to press the call button. Faced with how serious I was, they realized I wasn't bluffing. They angrily and reluctantly started loading the suitcases back into the car with no other option. Before leaving, my dad turned to me and said, "One day, you'll regret this." Watching them drive away, I felt a wave of relief, but also a deep unease. I knew this wasn't the end. They wouldn't give up that easily, and I had no idea what they'd try next. In that moment, I realized this battle was far from over, and I had to be ready for whatever came next from my own family. And just as I expected, the battle wasn't over. True to form, my parents kicked off their next move the very next day. I had just been at my desk for about an hour, getting ready to start a new project, when my phone buzzed. The name on the screen was Tony, Maria's son. As soon as I picked up, he skipped the greetings and went straight into it, his voice full of anger. "Isla, how could you send your parents away when they were just asking to stay for a few days?" Right after that, my dad's sister, Aunt Linda, called. She said, "Isla, I'm disappointed in you. How could you be so cruel as to kick them out?" Then came Aunt Carmen, my mom's sister. Her voice was full of judgment when she said, "Isla, I've known you since you were a child. You were never a cold-hearted kid. What happened to you? Your parents just wanted to live near you so they could care for their health." Hearing all those accusations and guilt-tripping from relatives, I knew exactly what my parents had done. They'd called everyone in the family and spun an entirely different version of the story. In their version, I was the ungrateful daughter who heartlessly kicked out her aging parents when they wanted to stay for a few days because they missed me. They left out the part where they decided, without asking me, to move into my house. They never mentioned the 6 massive suitcases they brought, clearly intending to stay long-term. And of course, they didn't tell anyone about the decision to leave the Fresno house to Claire and turn my home into their permanent residence. But I didn't bother explaining that to the people calling me. Instead, I said, "If you believe what my parents told you, pick them up and take care of them yourself. If you won't help, don't tell me how to live my life." After that, they quickly hung up. Maybe they realized it's easy to criticize someone, but taking in my parents was a different story. Not everyone took my parents at their word, though. Around 11 o'clock a.m., while I was on my lunch break in the office, Uncle Mayan, my dad's older brother, called me. His tone was noticeably different from the others. He said, "Isla, I don't buy what your parents said. I know how they are. They always manage to tell a story that works in their favor. Tell me what happened." Hearing that brought me a sense of relief. Finally, someone was willing to listen to my side. I told him everything. From the dinner where they brought up the house, to the day they showed up with 6 suitcases and tried to force their way into my life. Uncle Mayan listened quietly, occasionally letting out a deep sigh. When I finished, he said, "I get it now. They went way too far. No one has the right to make life decisions for someone else, not even their parents." He paused for a moment, clearly thinking something over. Then he added, "I'll help you set the record straight with the rest of the family. They deserve to hear the truth, not just one side." That moment lifted a weight off my shoulders. Someone in the family understood and stood by me. For the first time in this mess, Uncle Mayan believed me and was willing to stand up for me against lies and manipulation. In that moment, I didn't feel alone in this fight anymore, and Uncle Mayan kept his word. Over the next few days, I started getting messages and phone calls from relatives, but this time, the tone was completely different. Instead of blaming me, they apologized for believing only one side of the story. Aunt Maria called and said, "Isla, I'm sorry for not letting you explain. I had no idea your parents would make up something like that. Now I understand why you had to do what you did." Even Tony texted me, "Hey, I'm sorry for yelling at you. I didn't think Michael and Rosa would lie like that. You were right to stand up for yourself." Uncle Mayan had stirred things up by telling the truth. He didn't just recount the events. He broke it all down for the rest of the family, helping them understand how my parents had manipulated everyone's emotions to put pressure on me. After everything, I called Uncle Mayan to thank him for having my back. 2 weeks later, Claire's wedding took place. But the event was missing nearly 30 family members. They didn't show up, even though they had been invited long before. I heard Claire cried a lot that day. As for me, I wasn't invited to the wedding at all. I had prepared a gift for Claire, a $10,000 check for her to use for the baby on the way. Despite everything, I still wanted to celebrate her becoming a mom. But since she didn't invite me, I used that money for something else, a European trip. A trip I had dreamed about for years, but never let myself take. It's been 3 months since that day, and my life has become much more peaceful. No more calls asking for money, no more pressure to sacrifice for the family, no more guilt for not meeting someone's unreasonable expectations. A neighbor told me that Claire and her husband moved into my parents' house after the wedding. That 3-bedroom home, which used to house just 2 older adults, now had to fit 4 grown adults. The space quickly became cramped and tense. As for my parents, they've been complaining to the neighbors about the rising cost of living, saying it's hard to support 4 people. Claire and her husband don't contribute much. With his modest construction worker salary, Gavin couldn't help out the way my parents had hoped. Whenever my mom brought up the financial strain, Claire would cry and say, "I'm pregnant and stressed out. Please stop bringing it up." My mom, worried about the baby and Claire's health, would bite her tongue and swallow her frustration. I also heard Gavin's been trying to pick up evening and weekend jobs to earn more. He's working from morning till night and barely has time to be with his wife. Claire complains that he doesn't spend enough time with the family, but she doesn't seem to understand that he's doing everything he can to provide for them. Maybe now they finally appreciate all I sacrifice for them. Perhaps now they understand the value of those $1,000 monthly transfers I used to send. They might finally realize that having a daughter who acted like a walking ATM was a privilege they took for granted. But now it's too late. Today, I share this story not to get your sympathy. I found happiness and peace in my life. I'm telling it for anyone going through something similar, those who've been made into their family's ATM. I hope this gives you another perspective and the strength to stand up for yourself. Sometimes saying no to your family doesn't mean you're cruel. Sometimes it's the only way to protect yourself from manipulation and abuse. Remember, real love in a family never comes with control or financial coercion. Thank you for following my story. Let me know where you're reading from in the comments. I'd love to see how far this message has reached. And if anyone out there is facing something similar, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the story if it resonated with you. Maybe my experience will help someone else find the strength to take a stand. Thank you all.